Thank you, Mr. Vikram Singh Mehta, for an excellent panoramic view of the global and Indian energy scenario and the challenges for India in achieving self-reliance in energy. We will now have a question and answer session with Mr. Vikram Singh Mehta. Those who wish to ask questions, please raise your hands and call for the mics from the attendants. You're requested to announce your name before putting forth your questions. Time available 10 minutes? 15, okay. Time available for question and answer session will be 15 minutes, but keep your questions very short, please. We request you not to make elaborate comments.
Yes, Hemant.
Vikram, thank you for the precision of your talk, and since the lady said that I should announce my name, yes, it is Hemant Luthra, 20 years with Mahindra, and had the pleasure of working with all of you. Given our dependency on coal for power generation and our dependence on lithium, cobalt, battery making and chips and solar panels outside the country, are we fooling ourselves about how green electric energy can be? Because by the time you're converting electricity to coal to electricity, transmitting it, then you're charging batteries which then cannot be recycled. I'm just trying to see if, are we all collectively fooling ourselves about how green it is if we have to burn coal? I can understand if we have wind, I can understand we have hydroelectric, but it's something that struck me.
No, I think, Hemant, it would be too strong to say we are fooling ourselves. We have already, as I said, increased green electricity to 150 gigawatts. And our total installed capacity of electricity in the country is around 400 gigawatts. So, more than one-third. And our ambition is that we will actually provide 50% of our electricity from green sources by 2030. So I wouldn't say we are fooling ourselves. What I would say is that the share of renewable energy, not for electricity, but share of renewables towards our energy basket or in our energy basket is going to be significantly less than the share of fossil fuels for decades to come. So electricity is one thing, but the total energy requirement is another. And I just want to repeat, we cannot scale up our renewable sort of sector unless we make complementary investments in infrastructure. We need to upgrade the grid to make it flexible, to accept or absorb molecules on an intermittent basis. The sun doesn't shine every day, at night, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So unless we do that, we will always remain subscale or suboptimal. So there's a lot of money required and technology to be able to create the requisite facilities in order to scale up renewables.
Sorry, there was a follow-up to, or a part of the question which maybe I did not articulate clearly. Given the dependence on lithium and the sources of lithium, okay?
Lithium.
And the sources of lithium and the sources of chips and the sources of solar panels, are we making a strategic mistake by increasing our dependence indirectly or indirectly on China?
Well, that's the point. We are moving towards a clean energy system. But in order to move in that direction, we will need to source minerals, mines, chips from the most competitive supply source. China happens to be that right now. So that was one of the big recommendations. We are dependent on them right now. If we were to actually impose quotas and duties on imports of solar panels from China, we would make our domestic suppliers of solar uncompetitive against coal. See, and that is the big conundrum for us. How do we actually manage to make in India, if you will, and at the same time ensure that we are competitive? And we can't. Today it isn't. So we will have to move away from China and find other sources. But right now, the world is dependent on China, and not just for, as I said, 60% of lithium is processed in China.
Nadim, you want to? Nadim?
Thank you, Vikram, for an excellent presentation. You mentioned that the energy transition is going to take a long time, and you did mention carbon storage. So isn't carbon storage a way we can continue to use fossil fuels and be green? And would that play a big role? And you had many, many suggestions. Could you tell us what are the different cost structures of all these suggestions?
Oh, God. Yeah, Nadir, I've known you for so long, and when the moment you put your hand up, I got nervous. No, I mean, carbon capture and sequestration is a technology that's now been proven and accepted. It's a question of cost, okay? And right now, it works when carbon is captured and sequestered in order to actually then either enhance the recovery of, gas or some other, or even oil in this case. But on its own, without an ancillary benefit accruing from that capture, it is still a high-cost option. So, on its own, as I say, on a standalone basis, a lot more work has to be done and cannot be a solution for us in India because we don't have those ancillary benefits flowing. We will not be able to increase our recovery rates from our existing producing fields on the basis of capturing the carbon because of the nature, the structure of those fields, the structure of the reservoirs. So your second part of the question was the cost. If I was to, obviously I had 9 recommendations, and I still think the tipping point for renewables will be when the cost competitiveness of renewables falls to the point where it is competitive against existing plants. Today, it is competitive against new plants. It is cheaper to build a new renewable plant than it is to build a thermal power plant. But it is not competitive against existing plants. So there is still, coal is on a full cost basis the cheapest fuel that we have. And it's going to be very difficult for us to actually argue to phase out coal until technology bridges the gap even further. I mean, in essence, that is the big issue for us. Oil, the problem with oil is that we have reserves of oil and gas, as I said, 26 sedimentary basins, but these basins are in the large ones are in either the Himalayan foothills or in deep water offshores, and it is very expensive to drill for those reserves, so for those resources. 1 in 10 wells strike a discovery, and a deep water well can cost up to $100 million per well. So, we have to be very careful that we do not expend scarce public resources towards the exploration of our oil and gas resources, because there is a very low probability of discovering commercial reserves. And even once you discover it, there's even a low probability of being able to develop them or produce them on a commercial basis. So the real question, I think, is coal versus renewables.
Yes, Sandesh.
Yeah, Vikram, fantastic, very insightful talk. I'm Subramanian Sharma, Director of Energy from Larsen & Toubro. My question is that India's investment in the foreign oil and gas has been very limited. And even where we have done, we have not been that successful. So is there, that's I see as a great opportunity. You talked about M&A and and investment, I think securing and into the reserves which are available at a low cost as a policy would be a quick win for us to pursue that. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I think there are opportunities. I mean, you won't find opportunities in the Middle East because those oil fields are controlled by national oil companies. But I do feel that there will be opportunities in South America. There will be opportunities actually in Russia at some point, and in Central Asia. The question, and this is the bigger question for me, it's not so much the identifying the opportunities, it's more a question of how do we actually develop our bid, our offer. In the past, we have actually competed against ourselves. I have examples of ONGC, Gas Authority of India, bidding for the same acreage in Iran. That made no sense. Whereas China, actually, when it was bidding for that acreage in Kazakhstan, I think it was Kazakhstan, the president arrived there. Then they made promises to actually build downstream refinery and some other fertilizer plant or something. They made all sorts of promises, and then they got this huge, they won the bid. So when I say that if we are going to go out to bid for acreage, low-cost acreage, competitive acreage, we have to actually have a strategy that is holistic, that puts the weight of, I use the word India Inc., but by India Inc. I meant not necessarily the private sector or the public sector. I really mean that let's be very clear in our head why we want it. It is a strategic decision, but it has to be backed by commercial logic. We shouldn't buy because just for strategy. We should buy because it makes commercial sense. And in order to make commercial sense, we should make sure that we are able to actually win that bid against the competition from China. But that will be possible if we put the balance sheets of all our companies together. That's my suggestion. I think there are opportunities. And someone should, in the government of India, proactively be exploring the possibility of those acquisition. I mean, those mergers and acquisition opportunities, proactively now.
Pawan?
Vikram, again, thank you very much for a very insightful look on this subject. So as I listen to your 10-point actions, or 10 action points, none of them are easy. Each one of them are quite complex, need a lot of work to do it. And while industry will play a good execution role in many of those, but the government has to really be the enabler, be the driver. So my question is that this will require a very holistic understanding of the whole subject, long-term view, and a will. Who is your voice going to, who will be able to kind of implement some of the things that you're talking about? Is someone listening, acting, understanding, and wanting to implement?
Well, that's a good question and a difficult one. I mean, who's listening? No one's listening and everyone's listening, I hope. What do I want? I want basically someone in the Prime Minister's office now, that's my recommendation, to look at energy as one subject. Pawan, can you imagine, there is not a single person in the government of India who has executive authority over energy. Executive over energy. They have executive authority over petroleum or coal or renewables. No one has executive authority over energy. Do you know that it takes 4,000 liters of water to make 1 liter of biodiesel? Does anyone make that connection? 9,000 liters of water to make 1 liter of diesel. Does anyone make that connection? We carry on the way we are, we'll have a water shortage in order to solve our energy problem. The point I'm making, which is fundamental, is that create an omnibus authority. I said, forget the omnibus Ministry of Energy because that's infeasible. Create someone with the rank of a minister, let's say, who has the authority to bring everyone around the table and focus on the interlinkages between different aspects of energy and the energy ecosystem, and develop an integrated strategy so that energy Atmanirbharta, which means energy self-reliance, becomes the fundamental focus of our policy thrust. That's another reason why I think elevate this whole thing through an act of parliament. So who's listening? You have actually got access to the Prime Minister, Pawan, so you please make sure that you go there.
One last question. One last question.
Yeah, my name is Michael Pinto, and really this is a kind of a follow-up on the same thing. You spoke about different ministries being involved in this and no one person taking decisions. Much the same thing was true of the logistics sector. There was the logistics sector. There was the Commerce Ministry, there was the Finance Ministry, there was the Civil Aviation, the Railways, ports and shipping. But they got their act together now by having one secretary in charge of it and putting them in a particular place. Now, the results are seen immediately. The cost of logistics has come down. Can the CSEP take up something similar like this for the energy sector? You be the moving force which will say we need one person that will look at something from all the ministries. The ministries won't wither away. I mean, there's not the Marxian state. So the ministries won't wither away. They will continue. But can you do this? Can you be the thrust, the agency that will do it? And when you're doing that, can you also look at the question of demand and supply? We are still giving free power instead of giving a subsidy to farmers. Why are we not doing that? When we give free power, power is never turned off. You know this. So if we can do that, and if you can move this also, we may be able to stop giving free power, stop growing rice where we shouldn't be growing it, grow something else there and move rice out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Can CSEP take that up too?
Wow, I will think about it. But Michael, thank you. And very nice to see you. It's been many years. But I note what you're saying. And